It gives me a great pleasure to introduce today's key speaker, Mr. Anshuman Chatterjee. Anshuman is a lead developer and automation architect at pCloudy, which is a part of Smart Software Testing Solutions. And he has close to 6 years of experience. Anshuman has been involved in automation tools and framework creation as a developer. Moreover, he has been responsible for the creation of all the pCloudy plugins for third-party tools, which you would have probably used in pCloudy or you'll be going to use it. So without spending any further time here, let's move on to the agenda for today. So So today's agenda, as you can see it here, we will quickly look into the brief introduction about pCloudy. Some of you are aware of what pCloudy is, but for the benefit of all, we will just quickly run through the quick introduction about pCloudy, followed by the evaluation of test frameworks. We have seen that in the organization what kind of test frameworks are created when we start creating the test framework, how we start, what are the challenges faced. So all those things are shown here in the form of use cases, and Anshuman will be taking you through that. Followed by the introduction of TestNG Framework, what TestNG Framework does and what are the benefits. Then we'll also see the best practices followed in the industry for test frameworks. After that, we will see how to configure the TestNG Framework for multi-device execution, because that's the need of an hour today. And lastly, we will also see a demo which will be more on the integration with the pCloudy for multi-device execution. So pCloudy, you can use it for executing your test execution on multiple devices parallelly. So that's what we are going to see it in today's webinar. Now we'll quickly move on to the brief about pCloudy, who we are, what we do at pCloudy. So we'll move on to the next slide and we'll see about pCloudy. So as I said, like most of you are already aware, but for the benefit of all, let's quickly look into a brief about pCloudy. So pCloudy is one of its kind platform which is primarily used for testing the mobile apps. pCloudy provides geographically distributed real mobile devices for both Android and iOS for your testing needs. We have 500 plus devices to choose from this platform. So in all, around 7,000 plus test engineers and developers are using this platform for daily testing across the globe. This platform is being used by the corporates to small and medium companies, and by individual test and developer communities also for their testing needs. This platform can be used for both manual and automation testing. So as today's webinar is concerned, we will be seeing mostly from the automation part, and typically how you are going to use pCloudy devices to run your test execution on multiple devices parallelly. Gartner has also published a report which talks about pCloudy platform and its benefits for using the tests as a framework for mobile applications. So we are proud to say that even we got published in the Gartner. So with this, I think we should be moving on to the core agenda of the webinar. So I would like to hand it over to Anshuman so that he can take you through the rest of the presentation here. Over to you, Anshuman.
Thank you, Nilesh, for the quick introduction and setting up the context. Before I begin, I want to add a small disclaimer that today I have a sore throat, so kindly bear with me and excuse for any interruptions in between. Let's now jump to the next slide. So I will start with a very basic formula of creation of everyone's my first automation script. This happens mostly when we are beginning with automation and we haven't had inherited a full-grown automation framework from our organization. What it means is we are beginning with automation in our organization for the first time, and as automation testers, we get a crude requirement to automate a product. That product might be a web application, a mobile application, or maybe something else. So this crude requirement, we either get it from the product owner or maybe from the test managers. At the same time, we also hear some galactic stories about the empire of Selenium, the Milky Way of WebDriver, and about the Appium constellations. Of course, if the product is on mobiles. We also hear about the existence of some commercial saviors like QTP, IBM's RFT, etc., etc. For days, no, sorry, we cannot afford days. Okay, for hours, we dream big about choosing an automation tool, learn it, and then write the test cases, generate some reports, find some real bugs in the product, and brag about it to the developers. Then we come back to the reality and start with stage one, a simple driver script. We add a tool and we get some results in console. So this is our basic framework that we develop for the first time when we are doing automation. So here the driver script is nothing but our, if I say in Java, it is our public static void main, where we get an entry point for our test code to begin. Here we instantiate the tool. So the tool might be Selenium WebDriver in case of web. It can be Appium in case of mobiles or something else as well. So here we instantiate our tool, then open the application under test and do a few clicks and type text maybe, print the output in the console, the Eclipse console, and that's it. So this is what we attain in our stage one. What happens? Then some more requirements come. So what are the requirements? So our test leads or managers or whoever was the product owner or the BA, they see our stage one crude script and say, why is the test data inside the script? It shouldn't have been inside the script. Separate it from the code, write it in some external files so that it can be edited at later point of time. So the requirement is separate data from scripts, and as in the stage one we are having results in console, so the second requirement is capture the snapshots so that they can be shared with the developers, and the developers can see the flow and find out the errors if any. Then we separate out the data and keep them in an XML or CSV or maybe an Excel file. We now also need to find or develop a boilerplate code to read data from files. Luckily, capturing snapshots were not so difficult. Let it be Appium or Selenium or anything. So then comes our stage two. We have our same driver script, the public static void main. We have a data in a separate file. It can be a CSV, an XML, or an XLS. Then inside our driver script, there's one boilerplate code to read the data from external files. Then we have the same tool, and now we have the execution reports with the snapshots. So stage two is now achieved. So we somewhat have a better framework, but that's not all. We still cannot brag about it. So here comes some more requirements for us. So as we have separated the data, why are we still keeping the object definitions inside the script? So separate the objects from the script, and then as we have captured the snapshots, we should also capture the logs. This comes as genuine requirements of the developers and the product owners. Okay, while you are performing automation, also capture the logs. Then we should also create a good looking HTML report that can be shared with the management. Of course, yes, the results in console that we were printing in the stage 1 and 2, they cannot be shared with the stakeholders and the management. So here comes our stage 3. So driver script plus data plus objects in another external files. Objects can be kept in either a page object model, or if it had to be separated out, then it can be kept in XMLs or maybe in Excel files as well, then tools, and which gives us HTML repos and snapshots as well as some logs. Much better. This looks much more promising than the previous two. At this point of time, it feels good to see your framework getting into shape. And yes, you can now brag a little about your achievement. But that's not all. Here are some more requirements that keeps on coming. Let's run the test on different browsers or mobiles in parallel. Oops. So the requirement now is multiple devices or multiple browsers should be running in parallel. No issues. What can be done? We can take the same script, the same jar file or whatever script it was of stage 3, we can run it in multiple processes. We can take the multiple processes of the same automation code to run in different processes, and every process will run in parallel. So yay, we have achieved parallel automation somewhat. But now the problems. So the problems are, so what were the problems in stage 3 and 4 are creation and maintenance of data and object driven framework, and reporting and logging frameworks as well. That we have already developed, but we have to maintain it as well. And every now and then there will be some issues, and there will be some new requirements. Okay, give me the heading of this report. The icon of this report should be changed. It should be exported in HTML as well as PDF. The log formatting is not very good. The logs should come in pop-up, or whatever is the format of the data and objects in Excel files, they need to be maintained. So everything will keep on coming, these types of issues. What else? So every process that we run in parallel executions, they consume memory. What does this mean? So previously, suppose in stage 3, we used to have a single Java process, Java minus jar, a single process. Now for parallel, if we are having, we want to execute our same script on Chrome, on Firefox, and on Internet Explorer. So everything is running in parallel, but now there are 3 Java processes. So 3 processes are consuming, like every Java process, if it is consuming 50 to 100 MBs, so it should be around 300 MBs for 3 processes. And if we want to add some more versions of the browser, suppose we want to test 3 versions of Internet Explorer, last 4 versions of Firefox, and the latest version of Chrome, so it is around 7 to 8 browsers that we want to run in parallel. So the execution is also happening in our machine, in my machine, but 7 to 8 Java processes are also running on the same machine. So 7 to 8 Java processes will collectively take around more than half a GB of RAM. So that is also one problem, that you will be requiring a machine with a higher configuration. So one more thing, what happens? So if we run different browsers on different processes, then you get individual reports for every browser, but you don't get anything consolidated. If you want to create consolidated reports, so creating them is the manual effort. So when every process ends, so now you get the report for the individual reports for every browser version. Now you have to consolidate the report. Okay, on Firefox version 46, everything was these test cases were passed, this percentage of test cases has failed, and on Google Chrome this has passed, this has failed, on Internet Explorer everything has failed, and on the latest Firefox everything is looking good so far. So these you have to create manually. Why? Because these were created in separate processes. So process, or you have to set up inter-process communication, that is tricky for everyone. So it is not so easy to implement. So better is to do it manually. One more problem what we will face, that file handling input output errors while creation of log files, reports, and snapshots. So suppose you want to access the same directory, because we are running the same process in different processes, same Java process in 4 different processes. So each Java process will try to access the same temp directory maybe, or it is reading the Excel file for data or objects. So input output errors might occur. So now comes stage 5. So what stage 5 is, in place of multiple processes, we execute it in multiple threads in parallel for the same automation code. So this will obviously resolve number 2 and number 3. So there will now in the stage 5 there will be a single Java process for parallel executions, that is invoking multiple threads, one thread for every browser. And now as everything is in the same, inside the same app domain, inside the same process, so the reporting framework can interact with each other, and the consolidated reports can now be achieved without any inter-process communications or IPCs. But there are some problems in stage 5 as well, multi-threading. So whenever we want to attain multi-threading, we get to know that the framework code is not thread safe. So what is this thread safe? What does code not thread safe means? It means that the driver object, in case of Selenium or Appium, so the driver object that we have created, and some other things like reports, reporting frameworks, and some other accessors, they are kept static. They are kept as public static WebDriver driver equal to null. So the driver object was kept static, which means they can be accessed without instantiating a class and are like shared variables. So if I give a small example, let there be 2 threads. So one thread has created the Firefox driver instance. So WebDriver Firefox driver equal to new Firefox driver. The second thread has created a Chrome driver. Now again the first thread is keeping the Firefox driver in the shared static variable, public static WebDriver driver. So util.driver equal to Firefox driver. Something, if this public static WebDriver driver was in util class, then util.driver equal to Firefox driver. The first thread will set this. The second thread, which has the Chrome driver object, it also keeps it in the same variable, util.driver. So what happens, as it was static, there was no instance of the driver object that needed to be created, and it can be accessed from any other class. Thus it is not thread safe. So what happens, because the driver instance was static, it was not thread safe. So as a result, the Firefox driver object was replaced by the second thread's Chrome driver object and was lost. So any subsequent execution, what will happen, on Chrome the execution went well, but on the Firefox only the browser was launched and nothing else happened. Why? Because the browser was launched when the Firefox driver was created, and it was kept in this util.driver object, but then util.driver object was replaced by the Chrome driver. So the long-term solution is to remove the static keyword from everywhere in your code. But beware, it is not so easy. It becomes a very big task, as I have seen in my past experiences in working with a lot of organizations, that this driver object has been used in numerous other places as well. So it is so deep inside our framework that we cannot remove it. So if you remove the static keyword, there are like 400 errors in the code because now our automation framework has grown. So what happens as the code was not thread safe? So mostly everyone adapts another solution. Okay, let us live with the problems of stage 4. We will run it in multiple processes whenever required. So what happened as a result? The concept of parallel testing remains in a POC stage. The POC was done. So you have already shown parallel testing in multiple processes, but multi-threading was not achieved for most of the cases, for most of the organizations. Introducing TestNG framework over here. So I believe that most of us who are attending this meeting are aware of this TestNG framework, but still for the sake of everyone's knowledge, I'll give a small brief about TestNG framework. Then I'll try to move about some advantages of using TestNG. So TestNG is a testing framework inspired from JUnit and NUnit. So this was initially developed for developers to unit test their code, but this can also be used by testers. So it is open source and it is in itself an automated testing framework. So it has the capabilities of creating reports, it has the capabilities of attaching log files, it has the capabilities of data driving the test, it has the capabilities of running your tests in parallel in separate threads as well. So you don't need to design all those frameworks. So your development framework effort is taken care of by the TestNG framework. So TestNG eliminates most of the limitations of the older framework and gives the developers or the testers the ability to write more flexible and powerful test cases. So there are annotations, grouping, sequencing, and parameterizations. So there are some benefits that we will discuss. And these are taken in perspective to Selenium or Appium. As TestNG is available for Java only. So yeah, it gives the ability to produce HTML reports of execution. That was the initial ask of the product owner, and we had to develop it, but TestNG already gives this functionality. So annotations are there to make the tester's life easy, and the test cases can be grouped and prioritized. What grouping and prioritizing means, that I'll explain in the next slides. So parallel testing is possible, and it has the capability of generating logs, and data parameterization is possible. So you can derive your test cases as per the data. So a small architecture diagram is there's one TestNG XML that is the base of TestNG. Here you create suits. Inside suits, there you create some tests. In the test, you create two things: some parameters and classes. Parameters as your data parameters that are needed to data drive your test cases. So in parameters, you can define, okay, parameters is test1, parameter is Chrome, test2, parameter is Firefox, test3, parameter is Internet Explorer. So everything can run in parallel. That I'll explain later. Then there are a collection of classes for each test, and every class, it makes use of some TestNG jar and the test data. Then inside each class, there's one before test, and after test. So in before test, we can say launch Appium or launch Selenium WebDriver browser. In test, I can perform the actions, perform my clicks and type text and get text and everything. And then in after test, we can stop the Appium instance or tear down the browser instance. And what you get are HTML reports that can be emailed. So I'll now go a little deeper in the TestNG framework and try to include some code in the PPT so that it is more automation tester oriented. So annotations. So what annotations are there? Before suit, then before test, then before class, there might be multiple classes in one test. Inside class, there will be a before method, then @test. So before every @test, the before method will be called, and then there might be multiple tests, and then after method will be called, then after class will be called. Then again, one test can, as I've told, one test can call multiple classes. So this is just a revision of TestNG. I'm assuming that most of the attendees who are with us, they already know a little about TestNG framework. So before method, then again some tests, and then after method, then after class, then after test, then after suit. So all these annotations are there. You can make use of these annotations so that you don't need to write your method names in a specific format and choose it from your driver script. So you annotate your methods, your test methods, and your helper methods, you annotate it with before and after annotations, and then the TestNG XML is responsible to pick up those methods only which you have selected in your XML and from the class that you have mentioned, and it executes those annotations. So you don't need to mention, okay, what methods to, you don't need a public static void main, or you don't need to mention somewhere that these methods needs to be run. Then there might be groupings. So this is a very important aspect that is very easy to implement, but I haven't seen it much. So for example, there might be a group of tests that I want to assign into. So every test can be assigned into multiple groups. So in the @test parameter, you can give one groups parameter, and this is one array. So you can say, okay, car1 is a car type of test. So car2 is also a car type of test. Then scooter1 is a scooter type of test. Scooter2 is also a scooter type of test. And there's one sedan one, which is a car type of test, as well as a sedan type of test, sedan car. So now in your XML, what you can do, so these are like your, you can annotate your test methods into, some of the test methods are sanity, and some of the test methods are regression. Some of the test methods may be database specific. Some of the test methods are like some mobile specific. So you can group your test cases. You can annotate that, okay, all these groups needs to be taken, and you can choose in the XML which group should run. So if in the XML I declare, okay, I want to run all the tests whose groups are car, then car1, car2, and sedan1 will be executed. The scooter1 and scooter2 tests will not be executed. So same things you can achieve. You can annotate your test scripts with either their regression or their sanity, and you can make a group. Okay, for this release, whatever will be the release critical bugs retesting, all you can annotate. This is a very important and good feature that I like. But yeah, one more thing is depends on. So suppose my test cases are dependent on each other. A very good example is you cannot sign up before you do open your browser, and you cannot log in before you sign up. So what we can do is we can mention, okay, there's one test that depends upon open browser. So there's one sign-in test that depends upon open browser. Then there's one open browser test. And then we have mentioned the logout, which depends upon sign-in. Right. So even if you don't give this the depends on methods, if you don't annotate, then what will happen? The TestNG will take your method names and try to execute it alphabetically. So it might happen that first sign in gets executed, then logout test case gets executed, and then third open browser will execute. But if you write depends on, then it will first, it will see depends on open browser, so it cannot execute sign in. It will go to open browser. So open browser doesn't depends on any other test cases. So it will first execute this line. Then it will it might go to sign in and check, okay, open browser was completed. So it will execute the sign in second. And then when it will go to logout, it is mentioned that it depends on the sign in method. So the logout can also, then at the third position, the logout test case will be called. So there are, let's discuss now about sequencing, prioritizing, and skipping the parameterization. So what is sequencing and prioritizing? So like in groups, we can also say, okay, the priority of this test is 0, the priority of second is 1, the priority of third is 2, and the fourth is 3. So it will execute in this sequence. If you have not mentioned the priority, what will happen? First of all, A, B, C, D, E, F. So first of all, 4 will be executed, and then F, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O. Then 1 will be executed, and then P, Q, R, S, T. So 2 and 3 will be executed. So the sequence of execution will be 4, 1, 2, and 3. But if we, whereas if we write priority equal to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, so it will order my test cases by this priority number, and it will execute them in sequence. Now skipping. So suppose I want to skip, I am while debugging, or I want to skip some of the test cases. So what I can do, in the same thing, I can write enabled equal to false. So if I write enabled equal to false, if I annotate a test with enabled equal to false, by default enabled will be true for all others. So first this will be executed, number 1, and 2, second will be skipped, and fourth will be executed thereafter. So this is also a very good functionality of TestNG that otherwise needed to be created by us. So the data parameterization. Suppose you want to authenticate your test case with some username and password, and you have multiple authentications to check. So the test cases is like open the browser, authenticate, check the authentication is successful or not, and then log out. And this authentication you have to check with suppose 5 different valid credentials, 3 invalid credentials, and 2 such type of credentials which is not valid for the browser itself, something like a numeral username. So all those borderline testing and parameterization testing, you can do it like this. So suppose this is one test which expects one username and password. So it can be annotated with a data provider named authentication, and somewhere in your code which is being called, you can also mention a data provider which will be an 2-dimensional object array, where you can return the first set of test user underscore 1 and the test at 123 password, and the test user underscore 2 and test at 123 password. So what will happen? So the same test case, the single test case, this will be executed 2 times. So one more application of this is I can mention, okay, data provider, like data provider name authentication. I can create one more data provider named browser, and I can return an instance of new object. So first browser is Chrome, second browser is Firefox, third browser is Internet Explorer. So the same test will be invoked 3 times. Now comes what we were waiting for, the cross-browser and parallel tests. So just a reminder, suppose you have any questions, you can throw them to us via the questions panel in your GoToWebinar link, and we will take up the questions after this session. Okay, so cross-browser is like whatever I have mentioned. So I can expect a browser name in before test, and in the XML I can say, okay, there's one suite and there are two tests. One test is Firefox test, where the parameter name is browser, the value will be Firefox, class is multi-browser, the same class, multi-browser, and there will be one more test which is IE test. So here the parameter name browser will be IE and the class name is same, multi-browser. So the same class, this will be executed two times. One for the TestNG test named Firefox test, and second for the TestNG test named IE test. What about parallel testing? So this was cross-browser, but still it will be executed in sequence. So first Firefox will be executed. Once Firefox is finished, then the IE test will be executed. You can see here I have not mentioned private WebDriver as a static class. So now I can proceed to parallel testing as well. Same thing, my multi-browser class remains same. Just in this suite, I will say parallel, like here parallel equal to none. Here I will say parallel equal to tests. So there are two tests. One is Firefox test and second is IE test. Both the Firefox test and IE test, they will run in parallel. And as this, so the instance of multi-browser, TestNG will handle and create two separate instances of multi-browser where this WebDriver object will be created, and they will be kept separated as they are not static, so they will not be replaced. And two devices and two browsers can be now be executed on. Now, the core of this webinar, dynamically choosing browsers or mobile devices for Appium. So even if we have achieved stage 5 over here by TestNG, so this is still parallel testing and everything is on different threads, and as we were following TestNG's best practices, so this was not static. We have got the logging framework and the snapshots framework. Everything was going good. But how to dynamically choose? Suppose sometimes I want this to be sometimes be running on Firefox and Chrome. Some other times I want to run it on Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer. Sometimes only on Chrome, and this becomes even a bigger pain when we deal with mobile devices. For browsers, we still have like 3 or 4 popular browsers with different versions. If we take it, is like 7 to 8 different browsers. But for mobile devices, it's like 10 popular vendors I want to test, and for every vendor there are like five different models, and for every model there are a couple of versions. So we have to like cover different API levels, different manufacturers, different models, and so the my fragmentation becomes like 20 test cases. The same test case I have to execute in 20 different threads. So this is still, if you want to choose dynamically, this is not possible. Even if you want to do parallel testing, you can always create a suite and keep on adding tests in it, but it is a manual process and like it will be problematic. You won't be able to do it every time. So how to dynamically choose browsers or mobile devices? So fortunately, there is a hidden gem in TestNG. So I have written hidden because it took us some time to find it, and I have seen that most of the organizations, they are not using this technique, and this is not also covered in most of the blogs and helps that are available online. That gem is TestNG TNG equal to new TestNG. So this was never explained. So we, in every blog, in every help document, we have a testng.xml to begin with. So we have to write that XML, then the execution happens as per the XML. But what if I want to generate that XML dynamically? So you don't need to generate that XML. There's already the testng class for you. So what can be done? So this XML suite, there's one, when you add the TestNG reference in your project, in your Java project, you can use this TestNG class XML suite. The suite equal to new XML suite, you can set name as TestNG suite. Then you can add a test, XML test. You can set name as TestNG test. You can add a new, you can add some classes. So com.mycompany.test.signup classes I'm adding in this list, the classes list, XML class. Second class is login, and the third class is logout. And then I can set, okay, that this test should execute these classes. So all these three classes have been added, and then I can say, okay, this suits dot add suit testng equal to new testng, and then testng dot set XML suits this suits object, which contains the test, which contains the classes, and then I can say tng testng dot run. So it will execute in the same manner like we are doing through our XML. So now in my public static void main, I can decide, okay, which classes to choose, on which browsers those parameters needs to be done. All those things can be calculated, and based on our requirements, we can create the testng XML structure, and then we can say testng.run. So this thing is what I wanted to show you all. So I have a video where we have explained how do we do it in pCloudy and how do we tell others to follow. So I'll start the video in full screen. So I'm trying to download the pCloudy sample projects, which is already available in GitHub. So that's a public repository, and you can see. So there are three types of languages that we have developed sample projects for in Appium. One is Java, .NET, and then Node.js. So these are both for quick beginners as well as for advanced learners. So if I go into Java, we can see that there are a number of chapters that have been covered. They cover Android, TestNG, native, then web, then iOS, as well as Java multi-threadings as well. What was our initial approach for multi-threading was for stage 5. Now I'm going back to this pCloudy sample projects. If you are already familiar with Git, you can either clone the repository or otherwise you can download it. So I will skip some part of the video where it shows how to import the sample project and build it via Maven, and I will proceed directly about building the project and how we have integrated. So here I have skipped some parts. So I am now logging into device.pcloudy, which is our public cloud of mobile devices. So the device.pcloudy screen has already some REST APIs, which can be connected through these API username and access keys. So I will copy this and add it in my sample project. So I have paused the video over here. So you can see here are the 12 sample chapters that were in the GitHub repository that I have already imported in Eclipse, and skipped that part of the video to save some time. And here are these controller class, the device context class. There are two test classes, class 1 and class 2, and there is one test setup, which is the base class of test class 1 and class 2. Right. So here I'm doing the same testng, my test equal to new testng, then set parallel equal to tests, and then add new XML classes, pCloudy TestNG test class 1 and test class 2. Here are test class 1 and test class 2. Then I'm giving the auth token and API key and to connect to pCloudy, and then I'm dynamically choosing some devices using this selected devices.add all. I'm dynamically choosing some devices, so I can either choose 2 devices dynamically or I can choose 20 devices. So here, depending on the number of devices that I have chosen, it will create the XML and execute it. So I'll quickly go to the test classes that in between versions 5 and version 7, pick any 3 devices in random, and for each device I will be adding one device context, and I will be adding one XML test in the TestNG. So it doesn't matter if I choose a single device or maybe 2 devices or 20 devices. The for loop will run and it will set the thread count as how many devices have been booked .length, and then testng.run. So when we execute the testng.run, and then the consolidated report can be created after this run has been completed. So you can either use TestNG's own reporting framework, or in this project we have used pCloudy's reporting framework. There's one more reporting framework that most of you might heard of, that is extent reporting. So that is also that also looks like a very promising reporting framework. So here in my before class, I'm setting the driver object, and this driver object is a context sensitive so that it doesn't goes into the shared session. So when the Android driver will be created on the Chrome browser, all these tests will be executed, but everything is inside a parameter that was defined while creating the TestNG class. So all these parameters are like context sensitive. So whenever you want your context, you can say all device contexts will be kept. There's a dictionary where you pass your device name and you will get the device context. So you get your driver instance. You don't have to rely on any static or shared method. So I'm going a bit fast for the sake of time, as I have to finish it within the next 5 minutes before taking up the question and answers round. So this webinar will be shared with you after it ends, and all these projects and this video is also made available in YouTube, so you can download the project from GitHub if needed and see how does it work. So I have executed it on 3 devices, and it is actually executed on the pCloudy platform on 3 devices. So this is the live view of the platform where you can see what is happening on every device, and if needed, you can also interact with the device. So we can see in the HTC device, it got logged somehow. So I can go into the options section and enable interaction, and then I can unlock the phone. So it is as simple as having the phone on your local machine on your hands and interacting with it, and all the 3 device execution running in parallel on a single Java process and from inside the TestNG framework. So on one device it finished, so the after test of that device must have been called, and so now the reports are also ready. So here you will also get the TestNG reports, but what we are opening is the pCloudy reports that can be integrated. You can also integrate extent reports over here. So all those snapshots and the test results in 1:1 can be created. So this is anyways can be done for your Java multi-threading as well. But yes, all these things you can also use the TestNG reports, and we have achieved dynamically choosing different devices and executing them. So now I'll also go to, in the video itself, I'll go to the device.pCloudy session and in the automation report section to see what data does the pCloudy thing captures. So it has your Appium logs, it has your device logs. This is all the Appium server logs that were executed. This you don't have to capture. This pCloudy captures automatically. Then the device logs. So all these logs are also available as part of API. So you can download it from the API and from within your script and give it to TestNG, so that TestNG will show it in their report if needed. So this is the ADB logcat logs in case of Android and iDevices log in case of iOS. So the whole session video is also available in an FLV format. And one more very important aspect of this is the performance report. So what was the CPU of this device, what was the memory and the battery consumptions. So all these types of information is available. And so I think I'm done with the PPT over here, and there's less than 10 minutes now. So Nilesh, should we jump to the Q&A?
Yes, please. Yeah, we have got a lot of questions. So let's start answering that. Let me just answer to the first question, which was asked by Arvind SC. He's asking if we can show the stages of framework once again. So Aniruddha, we are sorry, we have time constraint right now. But as Anshuman mentioned, you can very well see the recorded video for this webinar. So you can go and look for the stages again. Yeah, thanks. So Anshuman, over to you to take up the questions.
Yeah, thank you, Nilesh. I'll take it up. So Vijay has asked, how can we execute TestNG XML using pCloudy? So I have showcased this in this webinar, and I think this question might have come a little earlier. Yeah, Vijay, you can download the sample projects, and we have written a few blogs around this technique, and we also have uploaded the same video that I showcased in this webinar, which tells you the step-by-step process on how you can achieve that. Can we trigger Android and iOS devices parallelly? So on TestNG, yes, this can be done, and on pCloudy as well, yes, the same can be done. You can create two different sessions. So in your live view, there will be two different sessions, one for Android multiple devices and one for iOS multiple devices. Because one pCloudy session is for one particular platform, but yes, you can execute two different sessions in parallel and from the same TestNG code. That can be done. So same question, can iOS and Android devices can be run in parallel, from Deepak Jan as well? Yes, the same answer. They can technically they can be run in parallel, both in pCloudy as well as in TestNG. So you can create two different sessions. Is there any prerequisites to run iOS devices in parallel? Yes, this is a tricky question. So this is more on Appium. So Appium, by default, if you want to run iOS device in parallel using Appium, you won't be able to do that. So we have achieved that thing in pCloudy. With pCloudy, you can do it. But I think this question is from Deepak Jan, and more from a local perspective, on a local device pool. So if you want to do that, Deepak, so there's one capability that you need to set. So there's one port. So I don't remember that port, the capability name. So there was one desired capabilities that you need to set. So you will find it in the Appium documents in the capabilities section. And if you set that port, so that is the iProxy port, if you can set it. So if you want to run multiple devices in parallel, so it can be run. But just a small note of caution from my side, that the frameworks of iOS has changed. So previously it was UI automation, now they have moved to XUI test. So you can run in parallel multiple devices, but all the devices should belong to the same framework. So you can, at one point of time, you can select only a single version of Xcode. So suppose you are selecting an older version of Xcode, Xcode 7, then you can only run UI automation in parallel. If you are selecting Xcode 9, which suppose XUI tests, then you can run only XUI tests in parallel. You won't be able to select two Xcodes on a single Mac machine. If you want to achieve that, you have to achieve multiple Mac machines. Can you please share the framework which you are using? Yes, this will be shared, and the whole link for the webinar will be shared. And suppose if there are some questions that I or Nilesh are not able to answer, so we will come back in one-to-one mails as well. And this framework will be shared to everyone. How to start Appium servers from pCloudy. So yeah, that has been covered in the webinar as well as in the videos and the sample applications. Does pCloudy support parallel simulator? So no, pCloudy only runs on real devices. So parallel testing is supported, but simulator we don't provide. We don't provide simulators. We only provide real Android and iOS devices. So parallel execution is supported in pCloudy? Yes. Simulator is supported in pCloudy? No. How can I run only failed test cases in pCloudy? So pCloudy doesn't know that your test cases has failed or passed. pCloudy is just providing you the Appium endpoints and the hub, a Selenium hub to maintain parallel execution. So you have to make your TestNG framework or whatever framework you have using. You have to make sure that there's one more parameter in TestNG, that is retriable. So whenever one test case is failed, you can retry that test case with some prerequisites or some recovery scenarios handling. So that will not be a feature of pCloudy. That is a feature of the framework or test. If you are using TestNG, that is a feature of TestNG. If you are using some other homegrown framework, you have to build it in that. And as I've mentioned, you can skip the past test cases or something like that, and you can run the rest of the test cases. So how can I run only the filters? This is done. So basically, Appium is used as automation tool. So this question is from Chris. So basically, Appium is used as automation tool, and then we execute Appium scripts to pCloudy devices, or Selenium can be used instead of Appium. Okay. So Chris, thank you for attending this webinar. So as pCloudy only provides you the Android and iOS devices, so only Appium needs to be used as a tool. So and for web automation, if you want to use web automation, that can also be triggered using the Selenium based scripts, and Appium can be used as a tool because Selenium WebDriver has been deprecated for running directly on iOS and Android. So that project was deprecated long back. So now officially only Appium can be used to run your web scripts for your website's automation. Even if you have native or hybrid, then also Appium needs to be used. And if you want to use if you want to automate any desktop websites on a desktop browser, then we have another product in our portfolio, which is Opkey. You can look into it. Some more questions are left. I don't think we would be able to select one more. Okay, so I'll be answering the last question for now, and for the rest of the questions, we will be communicating to you one-on-one. If you have more questions, then feel free to either log a support ticket or contact us. Okay, can we run native applications using the same procedures? Yes, native as well as the hybrid applications both can be executed using the same procedure. And as I was showing you the sample projects link in the GitHub, so it contains applications for both Android, iOS, on native as well as web, and based on TestNG framework or based on Java framework. And recently we have added a sample project that runs from Cucumber framework as well. Okay, we need to execute same class files with different test data from Excel on multiple devices parallelly using grid, but how can we do it on pCloudy? Okay, so same class file with different test data. This is exactly what we are doing as of now. So we are maintaining a context object that can be read from Excel or an external data source, might be a CSV file or even might be a database. So every device will be saved in one context variable, and you can set, okay, for this device, these all parameters will be used. For a second set of devices, these all parameters will be used. So you can do it like that. So I think time's up, Nilesh. I wanted to answer a few more questions, but
Yeah, no worries, Anshuman. Thank you so much. I think we can still get back to the individuals on one-on-one by answering their questions. Thanks, Anshuman, for such an insightful presentation and wonderful information on TestNG framework. I'm sure the audience will get benefited with this information. Yeah? And for the benefit of audience, the video recording for this webinar will be available on our site, and we will also be intimating you through an email for this recording, so you can refer to it whenever you want. Thanks again for joining in and attending this session. Thank you so much. Thanks, Ashwin. Bye-bye.